Kurdish refugees still flee as Iraq agrees to the UN ceasefire. And more protests in Los Angeles against the handling of the police brutality case. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. A development tonight that could mean U.S. troops in the Persian Gulf will be coming home sooner than expected. The Iraqi government announced it will accept, reluctantly, but will accept the stiff conditions laid down by the United Nations for a ceasefire, including a demand to destroy its chemical weapons and ballistic missiles under UN supervision. If that happens, it would clear the way for U.S. troops to be replaced by a UN observer group. The news comes as hundreds of thousands of Kurdish refugees continue their exodus into Iran and Turkey. We're beginning our coverage there with Alan Pizzi.
The mountainsides of southern Turkey are littered with the human debris of Iraq's brutal purge of its rebellious Kurdish people. Up to 300,000 Iraqi Kurds have crossed the border, according to official estimates, with 500,000 to 700,000 more still heading this way. Turkish officials say as many as 1,500 Kurds died along the escape routes in Iraq, victims of hunger, cold, and disease, and Iraqi troops reportedly continue to shell them. The Iraqi parliament today reluctantly voted to accept UN terms for a formal ceasefire. They include elimination of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, the impounding of some oil revenues to pay war reparations, and they should pave the way for the withdrawal of US-led allied forces, who still occupy some 15% of Iraqi territory. But for the Kurdish refugees who fled with little more than their lives, that isn't a victory. The failure of the U.S. and its allies to do anything to stop Saddam Hussein's troops from ravaging the rebellion they encouraged has left a bitter taste here. Even the Turkish response is coming under attack. Local newspapers accuse the government of confusion. While the border is unofficially closed, the government says it will not stop Iraqi Kurds from coming across. There have even been veiled threats of armed intervention if Iraqi troops continue to attack Kurdish civilians. The Turkish authorities want to keep the Iraqi Kurds as close to the border as possible to make sure they stay just refugees seeking temporary asylum and don't become new immigrants to swell the already restive local Kurdish population. The local response to the refugees' plight has been instant and generous. Loads of food, blankets, and money donated by a people who themselves are often desperately poor. International aid has begun to flow in too, but the needs are massive and growing. And no matter how great the response, the tragedy has happened. All that can be done now is to stop it getting worse. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, along the Turkey-Iraq border.
A permanent ceasefire means that thousands of U.S. troops in occupied Iraq could start firming up their homecoming plans immediately. Bert Quint now with more on that.
Now that the Iraqi parliament has accepted the UN ceasefire, the machine gunner at Checkpoint Charlie figures it's just a matter of days before he goes home and says, "Thank God I made it." His lieutenant isn't so confident. He thinks about the mines and the unexploded bombs in the sand and the shots they hear at night.
Came the whole war with my entire platoon, no injuries, and that's the way I want to go home. And a girl I got to be getting back to.
The Army brass says most of the troops in the stretch of southern Iraq the Americans control will be out of here within 4 days once the permanent ceasefire is signed. They may stay in Saudi Arabia a while, but it's a big step toward home. As they wait, these GIs are surrounded by desert and hot winds, the debris of a shattered Iraqi army, and the human flotsam and jetsam of Saddam Hussein's war against his own people.
Okay, why don't we get a litter here, guys? And put
Checkpoint Charlie's medics patch up the wounded as best they can and send them on to field hospitals, but they can't get them out of their minds.
It's kind of sad. We don't know what's going to happen once we leave. We do what we can while we're here.